Hello and welcome to episode 351 of the Income Stream. Today we're talking about hiring and working with other people, something that initially, guess what? I didn't want to do. I was very afraid to do. But looking back, I only wish I had done it sooner. And today we're going to talk about a number of tips for you, whether you're just starting out hiring, getting some help, helping yourself by getting some help, or you are looking to build a full-time team like I have now. It took a long time to get here, I promise you. But we're going to talk about all the things. I'm going to answer some questions. We're going to have some fun today. Thank you. High five for being here. And I appreciate you. Welcome to the Income Stream.
This is the Income Stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the Income Stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The Income Stream with Pat Flynn.
Woo! Okay. Got that energy going. I hope that you are ready because we have a lot to talk about. Now, as we wait for the intro here, let's just say hello to some friends. We got Burke in the house. We got Tamara. We got Bill, Michael, Bernard, Sin. What's up, Sin? Good to see you here. Sherry, EJ, the Travel Diva, Makeup Eye and Tonica. We got Stephanie. We got CV in the house. Uncle Bill, Andrew. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Again, we're talking about hiring people and working with people and what that's like. Now, I'm just going to tell you up front. You don't and you shouldn't start by hiring a team of 10 people. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times when we think about like hiring people or having a team help us, we think we have to jump to like, level 5,000. But right now you just need to start at level 1. And level 1 is also understanding, well, what is it that you really need help with? I think before we start to do what everybody else is doing and start hiring assistants and things like that, VAs and whatnot, again, very important. We first need to understand, well, what do we need to hand off? And there's a very good book out there that I want to recommend by one of my best friends, Chris Ducker. And this book is called Virtual Freedom. And it does give you virtual freedom because you hire virtual assistants that can give you that freedom because you're allowing yourself to let go of certain things. And there's a lot of psychological things around letting go and having other people work for you and do things for you. But the truth is you just have to start out small. You just have to start out small. And in fact, starting out with a single project might be the best place to start. What's up, Shauna? John, Daniela, Kathy, B-Roy, welcome in. Thank you so much for being here today. So let's talk about my very first hire. So in 2008, many of you know, I launched a business helping people in the architecture industry pass a particular exam. This exam was called the LEED exam, and it was very difficult, and I had built a website to kind of help people. And my first month of launching a product on that website was October of 2008. I had successfully launched an ebook, literally a PDF file sold on the web, and it did pretty well. I had made $7,908.55 that first month, went up to $9,000 the next month, $11,000 the next month. And then in December of 2008, I said, you know what? I've been seeing a lot of people talk about this thing about, diversifying your product suite and offering additional products to the customers who are already there and additional offerings or options for people. And I got really excited. I got really excited because I wanted to create a second product. But you don't always have to create a completely brand new product. You might be able to sell a different version of the product that you already have. And the product that I had was an ebook. The additional version that I wanted to create was an audiobook. Yes, an audiobook. Now, mind you, I was not a podcaster at this time, but I said, you know what? I built the website all by myself. I created the study guide all by myself. I figured out along the way how to get it up and selling on the web all by myself. Guess what? I have a voice. I have a microphone. I can do this all by myself too. So that's what I did. I had my Logitech gaming headset that I literally would use to play Quake 2 and Diablo 2 on and other games. And I put it on my head. And I had my book right in front of me, and I think I was using Windows 95 or Windows 98 or something, and there was just like a little audio recorder app that was in there. I used that. So again, just bare bones. I was like, okay, I can figure out how to do this. I have recorded my voice before just for fun, and I can do this. So I spent 3 days recording this book with my voice, my little Logitech headset mic. I played it back after it was all done. And I was not happy. I was not happy because I just couldn't imagine selling something so disgusting. And it was disgusting for a number of reasons. Number one, the sound quality wasn't the best. I was considered like, I like when I did test it, right? Like I recorded my voice up front and I was like, okay, this sounds fine. And then I just recorded the whole book. But when I thought about it later, it was like, okay, each of these chapters are like 20, 30 minutes long. And people are going to be listening to these in their car or on the go or on the walk or what have you after they purchase it. Like, this is not good audio quality, let alone the fact that when I was reading this book, like literally reading my own words, I would still have random pauses and ums and awkwardness. And I was like, wow, this is very difficult. So I remember going back to my mastermind group in a group called Internet Business Mastery. And there was a bunch of guys in there that kind of had been helping me along my journey and following along. And they provided me a lot of great advice along the way. And I went to them and I said, hey, I'm trying to record an audiobook. I spent 3 days and I completely wasted my time. Like, how do you record an audiobook? Do you have any tips for me or a better microphone? And all I got as a response in the forums was LOL, ROFL, LMAO. They couldn't believe, they were laughing at me virtually, in all caps, by the way, that I tried to do this on my own. And I was like, why are you laughing at me, bros? Like, I'm trying hard here. I did everything I did on my own so far. Like, I can do, I have a voice. I could record it. And they're like, dude, just outsource it. And I was like, what is outsourcing? I had no idea what that meant. And in the world of online business, at least. And I think there was a sitcom or a show called Outsource or Outsourcing. Actually, I don't even know if that came out by this time, but I remember that. I just have memories of that. And they were like, yo, there's a website called elance.com. Put your job there and get people to bid on it. And I was like, bid on it? Well, like an auction? They're like, kind of. They're going to tell you how much they would pay or how much they would require for you to pay in order for you to work with them. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. Elance and another website called Odesk, which are like marketplaces where you can actually go, similar to Fiverr, but a little bit more higher end. Odesk and Elance merged to become what's called Upwork today. So Upwork.com, that still exists. Guess what? I still use it for hiring people for specific projects, which is the whole point of this lesson is you don't have to hire somebody on your team. You don't even have to hire somebody contractually. You can just hire somebody to start for a particular project that you know you need help with. But again, I didn't know that I needed help at this time until my friends started laughing at me. Anyway, I went on Elance and I posted my job and I got like 35 different companies and people reaching out to want to do the voiceover work, ranging from, get this, $300 to $5,000. I was just even more confused now. I initially wanted to go to 300, right? But again, I went back to my friends and they were like, don't go with the cheapest price because those guys are undercutting everybody else. The only way they can make money is if they send that to somebody else who's going to do it at a lesser quality. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then the high-end people were like super high-end people, way out of my price range. And so I got rid of a bunch of them. And then I got some really good advice. So if you're ever going to hire anybody, let alone on these places like Upwork.com, or in this instance, back in 2008, this was elance.com, you want to see how well these people communicate with you. And so I was told to reach out to every single person who was left. I got rid of the lower end, I got rid of the higher end, and I had the 20 or 15 people in the middle. And I reached out to all of them individually to see how well they replied and what they replied with. And I think I just asked a question about their experience. I can't remember exactly what the message was, but it was very clear because some of them didn't respond until 2 days later. And I was like, okay, you're probably not the people I want to work with. You're out, right? Just, you're out of here. I didn't slap them away, but I just want to use the soundboard. And then some other people were very quick to reply. And I ended up having conversations with a number of them. And there was one person in particular that I had a really good vibe with. Her name was Trish, voiceoversbytrish.com. I think that website still exists today. But she was not the cheapest of the lot that was left over. But I knew that by talking to her and the vibe I was getting and going into her portfolio, that she would be a perfect person for the job. Now, she cost $2,400 to read my book that I wrote that, again, I thought that I could read myself. And I know a lot of people read their own books. I now do that on my own with my audiobooks, but that's years later, a lot more communication experience later, a lot more voice experience later, and let alone the fact that I go to a studio to record those books on my own. I think it's really important that an author should do it on their own, but for a study guide, no. I liked the fact that she had a female voice, which is a little bit easier on the ear for somebody who's going to be listening for studying purposes. I really liked it. And $2,400 was very difficult for me to let go of. I mean, that's a lot of money, and you don't have to spend that kind of money to get whatever it is that you're needing help with done. But I remember going, wow, that's like 3 months worth of rent for me. I don't know if I'm comfortable doing this. Because again, maybe I just needed a better microphone. Maybe I could try again and do it on my own. But you know what? I eventually learned the rule that it's very important to understand whenever you're hiring somebody, and that is, how much value does your time have? When you start to understand how much value your time has, you begin to start to understand whether or not your time, that is, again, valuable, should be spent doing these things that are not so valuable here, or these things that are valuable here, right? When you get to understand your going rate for you personally, right? Whether you calculate this per hour based on how much money you want to make or anything like that, or just understanding more holistically, like how you feel doing these things versus these things and how much you're worth, it begins to start to become a little bit easier to understand why investing in outside help completely makes sense. Because not only are you investing on having these people do things for you that normally you would do or have to figure out how to do, but you're now enabling yourself to do things here that you wouldn't have been able to do because you just didn't have the time. And that is of value. That is where you get the ROIs and the new things that you could get and the stress relief that you get as well when you hand those things off. So I said, okay, well, thankfully the business was okay, and I had a pocket of money to spend on this, and I said, okay, hopefully this works and I get this money back, within a month or so. So anyway, I invest. A week and a half later, Trish sends me these MP3 files back. They're beautiful. They sound perfect. I put them on my website. Literally the next day, I make up the cost. Like, literally in one day. And that's not always going to be the case. Even if it wasn't that, it would have been made up of over time eventually, because I knew that people wanted this. I had asked people ahead of time if they would listen to the audiobook. And it's interesting, the way it was broken down. So all my sales in December of 2008, which was the month and year where I launched this audio version of this guide, sales were broken down like this. 25% of my sales came from just the book alone. 10% of my sales came from just the audio file alone. 65% came from both of them because there was a little bit of a deal. Each of them cost $29.99. Together, they cost $44.99, or about $45. So it was a very, very good deal. They were saving $15. So naturally, anybody in studying for anything would want the best deal on the most available products, and the idea that they want to study on the go, it completely made sense. So anyway, I made up the cost in just a day, which was insane to me. And that was my first moment of, wow, I could have spent way more time trying to figure out how to do this. I could have spent a lot more money on equipment and stuff. Trish was able to get it done faster and better so that I could deliver and serve my audience better. So that was my first taste, if you will, of hiring somebody on the outside to do something that, again, I thought I could do on my own. And it was great. It was great. But that was just one project, right? Now we can level up a little bit more. There might be, and again, that was elance.com, which is now upwork.com. You can also hire people to do certain projects, anything from a podcast logo to helping you with legal work, to helping you with managing your terms of services on your website, to developing a 3D image of your book. Like, all those kinds of things are available. And yes, you could probably figure out how to do that on your own. But should you? Probably not. So this is why we hire. But we can level up from there. I want to fast forward. We're in the DeLorean now. We're moving into 2012, 2013 now. And Smart Passive Income has taken off. It's doing really well. You look at my numbers, it's like, wow, we're doing really, really well. So well, in fact, that I'm getting about 300 to 400 emails a day. And I'm just buried in them. I'm just absolutely buried. I'm spending 3 hours a day in email trying to respond to everybody, because that's how I got on the map. When I first started out, replying to every single comment, replying to every single email, even going further and offering even more value is what really helped me stand out. And if you're just starting out, guess what? That's your huge advantage that you have over bigger brands. And that's the advantage that I was taking. But then eventually I became that bigger brand. And I became that brand that was no longer available to reach out and individually reply to every single email or comment on social media anymore. And it was very disheartening. I mean, I was literally drowning. 10,000 unread emails. which is insane. And every time I got more emails every day, I'd look at my inbox. It was like, oh, 10,400, great. 400 more people who are going to be disappointed. I knew I needed some help. And this was a point at which I was hiring because something was broken, right? Versus like hiring to try and be proactive with something. I was hiring to be reactive. And in this case, it eventually became clear that I needed some help with email. So I hired Jess. Many of you know Jess, and she is so amazing. And she's still with me today. But this was back in 2012, 2013. And she came on board to help rescue me from email. And that was a very interesting thing for me because I was very afraid. With this audio book that I talked about earlier with Trish, who I hired, I wasn't afraid to let her do it. I was actually quite happy because I just wasn't good at it. But how could I let somebody else touch my emails? The thing that helped me create this amazing bond with my audience. How could I imagine somebody else taking my place, if you will, and doing that for me? And there were also some questions related to email specifically. Was she going to answer as me? Was she going to answer as herself? What would people think about that? Would people think that I was, not too good for them to be able to reply on my own or anything like that? There were some things that we did to ensure that it didn't come across that way. For example, on our contact page on our website, we basically just were upfront with people. I'm not able to reply to everybody and not in a timely manner. But if you do get a reply, that's cool. But we have some ways to help you out anyway. And just setting that expectation was great. If you want more information about managing your email specifically and hiring for somebody to do that and the different kinds of systems that you can include, I definitely recommend checking out Smart Passive Income Podcast, episode 115. Smart Passive Income Podcast, episode 115. Cool. Yeah, Jess is super sweet, for sure. And it took us some time, though, because initially I was like, okay, I'm hiring you for email, go. And thankfully she had experience because she was like, let me pull you back, because that's not how it works. We got to learn about each other first. And I was like, but I'm here to save time, not like spend more time. But the truth is, next lesson, when you hire somebody who's going to be working with you again and again, you got to spend some time to train each other. I'm not just saying you need to train this person, but you need to have them train you in terms of how they want to work as well, especially for something like an executive assistant who knows more about managing email than you do, for example. But at the same time, no matter who you hire, you have to invest some time up front to know that you can't just like expect this person to just in a godlike manner know exactly what to do at the exact right moment. It's going to take some time. And that investment, not just dollar amount, but investment in time up front, will pay you back, I promise. Now, how did I get in contact with Jess? It was actually through somebody who I was already working with through the podcast sphere, who had then found that somebody was looking for help. Jess, I needed help. Connect the two together. There you go. I've never gone through any of the job websites or anything like that, monster.com or Indeed. Those are great, but I prefer to go through my network and connections first, because you can often find better recommendations from people who you trust. Plus, if something goes wrong, you have somebody you can blame. Anyway, that's not the real reason, but yeah. So it was very difficult to let go of connection with my audience in a way, but I found out that the opposite happened. Because we were able to reply and because I hired somebody to help me do that, people actually appreciated that even more. People recognized the fact that I was very busy because we set that expectation up front. And when they got a reply of any kind from the brand, from me and Jess together, because we kind of both are in it for the same reasons, people felt very good about that and very special. Now, I'm not going to, again, go through the different systems that we have in place and the way that we work together. We have episodes of the podcast where we talk about that, including the first one that she was on, episode 115. But it was a really amazing experience to see now the return on that investment into Jess. And I've just been leaning on her for even more things because she's grown into so much more. She's no longer actually managing my emails as much. We have somebody else doing that with relation to SPI courses and SPI Pro stuff. But she's actually helping me with so many more things, from getting me booked onto other podcasts and vice versa, booking people to my shows, traveling, a lot of the contractual work that we do, getting books published and other kinds of things. Like, she's just done so much. And I'm very grateful for Jess and just appreciate her so much. And she's been on the show before, and we might see her, we'll see, on day 365. But yeah. So again, very important that before you hire, you, number one, understand what it is that you want to have to let go of to help other people, to have other people help you with, right? And then you go out, start in your network, and maybe even on these job sites to see how you might be able to find somebody to plug in those holes and do those things for you, with the expectation that you're not just going to hire this person who knows exactly how you want things done right away. It's going to take some time and training in order for that to happen. You get hired at any job, they don't just throw you in, hopefully. I mean, maybe they do. And yeah, that is a good experience. But in many cases, you want that person to do well and uphold the values of the company. It's like when I started working at Macaroni Grill, we spent 2 weeks training. Half of that time was me learning how to write my name upside down, because that's what you do. Hey, welcome to Macaroni Grill. And would you like to see the specials today? Here's our red wine, Mama Romano's, red wine, etc. You learn the whole spiel. Anyway. Ooh, let me take a breath, because I don't think I've taken a breath yet, but let's talk even further. Now, in 2013, I wrote a book called Let Go. Ironically, Uncle Bill, I saw you talk about that earlier. And Let Go is a book that is about my journey, having been let go from architecture in order to become an entrepreneur. I had to let go of who I thought I was supposed to be, all that sort of stuff, right? But book aside, the production of the book I needed help with. I had never published a book before. And through, again, a connection with a friend, his name was Adam Baker, he introduced me to somebody named Matt Gartland. Matt was working with a company, in fact, it was his company, called Winning Edits. And he helped people edit books and put them on Amazon. And I was like, cool, I need that. Let's work together. And what I was really impressed with Matt was, I'm more of the visionary type. I have this book, I have this idea, and he started asking a ton of questions about things like, okay, well, what, she also, sorry, I just had a ding and I got distracted. But what was very impressive was, I'm more the visionary person here. I want this done. Matt brought back, okay, here's the project timeline. Here is what we need and by when, like really making me feel like, okay, now there's a plan and a roadmap to move forward with. And I was really impressed, so much so that after the book launched, I went back to Matt and I was like, yo, Matt, can you guys help me with publishing blog content? Because I was falling behind on that. Can you help me with publishing podcast stuff? And he actually was able to support my company, Smart Passive Income, for 6 years. His team that he built, and he even hired people to help support me even more, was built to help me with podcasting, editing, and publishing, to help me with putting some online courses together. All the things that I needed, he and his team were able to do that. And I felt like Matt was the perfect sort of integrator in this world of working with other people. If you are an entrepreneur who is more of a visionary type person, you need your yang. You got your yin and you got your yang. Your yang, your other side, your salt to his pepper, your peanut butter to their jam, your butter to their toast, whatever. Pikachu to Ash Ketchum. You need an integrator, right? If you're a visionary. The integrator-visionary connection is where magic happens. I'm the visionary. I have ideas. I don't necessarily think that I'm so great at then breaking them down into projects and then how to manage people to sort of do all those things. That's where Matt comes in. Matt was the integrator. So much so that I loved everything he was doing and all of his team, that at the beginning of 2019, I acquired his company. I literally just was like, hey, Matt, I want to buy your company, and I just want all of y'all to work for me full time. Because I was still the only person on paper as the employee of Flynn Industries, LLC, my principal company. Flynn Industries, yeah. One of my best friends came up with that name. So on paper, it was very simple because I was just the sole single owner, and I had 0 employees. Everybody else was contracted out, and it felt like they were a team because they were helping me and they were managing a lot of my stuff and helping me just stay on creation mode so they can be on integrator mode, right? So it's really interesting because when I acquired this company, everything changed for the better, but also internally, I felt so much more weight, I must say. I mean, it was the nice thing about working with a agency, which is what Matt had with Winning Edits, was literally all I have to do is just cut them a check every month, and that was literally it. Like that was that was the amount of paperwork plus the any of the paperwork that comes in at the end of the year for tax purposes with relation to companies like that. But other than that, there was no employee handbook needed. There was no health insurance needed for my company because it was, again, just me, and I had already had health insurance. There was no workers' compensation insurance, like et cetera, all that kind of stuff, which scared me. But I will say, here's the interesting thing. When I acquired his company, yeah, it was a six-figure dollar amount that I paid. Um, but in the end, I ended up paying the same amount that I paid before to get 30% more time from each of those people because I wasn't the only client that Matt had. Um, and as a result of that, yes, I paid this hefty dollar amount, but I was also, when I was working with them as an agency, I was paying agency fees. So it's not just like the dollar per hour. It's there's a fee like added on top of that, a certain percentage that an agency has to earn profit. And that no longer was in existence because Matt and his entire team came on board to support me full time. So I'm basically was paying the same or am paying the same that I was, but I have that much more time with each of them now, and they are that much more dedicated to the business and the brand because they don't have any other clients, right? They're my employees now, which is pretty cool. But I definitely felt the weight of, oh my gosh, like these are real people that are now employees who have a salary. What if the business goes under? Like these are actual people's lives at stake versus if it was just a contract sort of situation, like I wouldn't feel as connected. And on one hand, it's like, oh, I wish I didn't have to worry so much. But at the same time, here's the thing. I get to worry. I get to actually help and support these people and in turn get so much amazing support back. And going full time with people or even part time, but now they're employees, they're actually W-2 employees. I mean, there are pros and cons with everything, but the pros have far outweighed the cons. I've seen the dedication I've seen from these people individually into the business and into you and into the crowd and into the audience. It was nothing like that before when they were just an agency. To see how much more dedicated they are to like improving processes on their own with the responsibilities that they each have in the business now versus before it was just like, oh, I'll get the work done and boom. And they didn't have really any say in the planning and sort of improvement. I mean, they did offer some things, but it's not like anything that it is now. Finding people who can help support not just the tasks, but the culture and the purpose and the mission is really where you want to lie, right? Sorry, I've just been like very much in this laser focused presentation, if you will, but I'm just scrolling up to make sure I see everything I need to see. Thank you for the kind words, everybody. You saved, but now you have healthcare. Great story. I never realized reading Let Go. You bought Matt's company. Yeah. That came later after Let Go was published. This was 2019. I bought his company. And 2020, they were on payroll. And they've been on payroll ever since. And some amazing things have happened. We, together as a company now, take time off. We celebrate together. We feel each other's pains. We're doing things to improve as a company that is more inclusive and thinking about other things that are more culturally important together now, which is something that I wouldn't have been able to do if it was just sort of myself and myself alone with some people who were contracted. A couple of our employees had babies recently, and to see that the healthcare that they have, that I'm providing, that the company is helping to provide, is helping support them and start their families is really amazing. And it's definitely lighting me up and making me want to get more serious about the brand and also wanting to include them. And this is why this past year, for those of you who've been following SPI for a while, it was very much like a just me situation. But now it's like the whole team is there to help you. And perhaps you've been seeing that more on the podcast and feeling that more in SPI Pro and in other places. There's been a lot more people involved than just me. And it's not because I'm trying to remove myself. It's because I'm trying to show equally how we can all help you in different kinds of ways, which is really cool. So I'm not saying you have to hire people full time. I just want to give some perspective because it definitely is like a real thing. It's still, to me, every once in a while I wake up and I get a little bit of anxiety just thinking like, am I being a good CEO? Am I being a good leader? And again, I have to lean on Matt and praise him a lot because he's definitely the integrator and the person involved with the people side of things. And I am the sort of like, I hate to say this, but like the talent, if you will, who is more front facing, who is more connecting to the audience, and they're sort of more behind the scenes. But like I said, we want to bring them up to light and show them off a little bit as well and the skills that they have to offer you too. But again, I'm not saying that you have to hire ever full time. I was cruising along for 6 years hiring an agency, but with the goals that I have and where I want to go and to grow bigger and to get other people involved, we definitely had to go down this route. It just made sense for me. And I think it was a smart investment that definitely has already paid off, which is really cool. But, as you can tell, the investment level has been going up. I mean, ever since that first go around. Now, I do want to tell a quick story about how I started working with a VA for a very specific project, but it was an ongoing project. I'm no longer working with this person, but some tips to help you maybe more at the starter level for hiring people, because you don't want to necessarily go full time right up front or even go to an agency which has agency prices. You might benefit from hiring a VA, a virtual assistant, to help you with something similar to Jess, who's more an executive VA in there in the email, but perhaps you have somebody that you hire that continually writes for you, or you have somebody that you hire that helps you with reporting on your analytics every month, and also is there to help you publish blog posts or edit your podcast episodes and publish them out there too. We can talk about that too. And I have experience working with people like that. In fact, very, very successful experiences. In 2013, 2014, I was starting this relationship with Matt, and they were doing a lot of things for me for the podcast. But at the same time, I was also building a lot of niche websites. And these were websites that were projects that were formed from scratch based on keyword research to build a website to hopefully generate some income. Very successful in many regards, and also complete failures with other experiments. But securityguardtraininghq.com was an example. I recently sold that business. Foodtrucker.com was another example. Recently sold that business. But those two were both started as an experiment that I could then use to amplify what was working and what wasn't on Smart Passive Income. But at the same time, I needed somebody that wasn't at the agency level through Matt's team to help support those businesses and keep them running. And I was building more out that didn't do very well, but I was still getting somebody to help me. So I found a VA from the Philippines. And this is where we start to get into traditionally what many online marketers and internet marketers consider a quote unquote VA is somebody overseas who's going to cost far less than somebody who's more local. And just to give you some perspective on pricing, it's kind of ridiculous. I had hired somebody through one of Chris Ducker's services, virtualstafffinder.com, still around today. They're sort of a headhunter service to help you find and vet those VAs for you instead of you having to go and initiate those conversations. You go through Chris's service, virtualstafffinder.com. I don't have any affiliate relationship or anything. It's just really, really, really good service. I found a person through that website, and I worked with this person for about a year, and it was an amazing experience. I'll tell you the pros and cons as we go along. So I hired this person who is a web developer who can help me create and churn out these niche websites and help me publish on them and whatnot, and report back on the stats on those websites and stuff. And here's the pricing. I hired this person for 40 hours a week. Okay, 40 hours a week, 240 hours a month, for $650 a month. $650 per month. So 650 divided by 240, that's $2.70 per hour. It almost feels like robbery. And honestly, it did to me too. But here's the thing. Because of the economies at scale between the two countries, the Philippines and the United States, US dollar goes a very long way in the Philippines. And with the culture there, I'm half Filipino myself, and I know this to be true. You actually don't want to make a lot. Amir says, you look like a goblin. Thank you. You sound like one, so I don't know which one's better. So $650 a month. It almost is like robbery. That's how I felt. I actually offered more money to this person, and he denied it. He did not want any more money. Because in the Philippines, and again, I know this culturally, is when you have a lot of money in the Philippines, you have a target on your back. Essentially, family members that you didn't even know you had would come out. It's kind of it's still a third world country, if you will, but that is crazy. And he was perfectly happy. He's able to support his family, pay for rent, food on the table. He had a kid. Was perfectly fine with $650 per month. And I was like, are you serious? So anyway, he did great work for me. He got his tasks done on time, every time. He got them done really well, with quality. But unfortunately, I found out that they don't do more than what you tell them to do. And again, on one hand, for somebody doing tasks over and over again for you, that's kind of what you want, and that's kind of what you get, especially from the Philippines. Culturally, people in the Philippines who work for people never overstep their boundaries. They get their work done, they get it done on time, they do it well. People also choose the Philippines because they have really good communication. They teach English in schools there. It's basically their their language there is English. I mean, there's Tagalog and a lot of other dialects, but everybody speaks English there, and communication is really great. It's kind of neat when you have a task for your Filipino VA and you go to bed, you wake up in the morning and it's done and you can like just continue on, which is pretty crazy, right? So the thing that I was missing though was I wanted to continue to get some help to take these websites even further, right? So every time I would ask, like, hey, what do you think we should do to get more eyeballs on this? They was like, whatever you want, boss, right? They often said they say boss a lot. Hey, like, what are some ideas that you have to improve the search engine optimization on this page? I don't know, boss, just tell me what to do and I'll get it done for you, right? And I was like, I appreciate that, but like, can you like, step up a little bit and help me out? It's just culturally that they're not often going to do that. I mean, some will, and I've heard of really good stories of VAs in the Philippines who will sort of take something on as their own with you and do it in the way that you'd like in that regard. But that's what I was missing, and that's why I'm so thankful for Matt and his team, which is definitely more local, U.S., all remote. Nobody works in an office building. Some of them work out of a co-working space. But what's really cool is they take ownership of the piece of the brand that they own, and they not own like points wise, but they own basically that's their responsibility, and they come up with new ideas. They make things more efficient. They have like they present things to the rest of the company to understand how to get things better, and that's really cool. Yeah. Before lockdown, did your team work in an office or did they work from home? When things get back to normal, will there be a Flynn headquarters? There is no Flynn headquarters. It's all remote. Everybody works remote. That's one of our values is you get to choose wherever you want to work. As long as the work gets done, I don't even care how many hours you work. You just get the thing done that you're supposed to get done. You take the rest of the time off. I don't care. Did you try to include employees that have exceptionalities? What do you mean, Tina, exactly by that? I just want to make sure I'm reading that question purposefully. With a VA, do they only help you or multiple people? They can help other people, like as long as they know. And here's how you train a VA. The best way to do it is to have your SOP, your standard operating procedure, especially for somebody in the Philippines. Not because like they don't know how to do it on their own. It's just because you want them to do it a certain way, and they will do it that way if you tell them how to do it. So a standard operating procedure could be a checklist, or better yet, a video to go along with the checklist to literally go, okay, you can use Loom or Loom is great, or any sort of video recording software. Loom is great because you just record a video and you have a link that you could share and put in a document that then becomes your standard operating procedure. So in case they forget how to do something, you literally show them, and it's them looking over your shoulder basically on how to do something so that they'll just repeat the same thing as you, right? And that's really great. And then you have this documentation to go, hey, here's what you do. And the beauty of that is in case the VA leaves or they move on to a different part of the company, if you want to upgrade them, you can just hire somebody else and go, okay, you pick up right where we left off. Here's the standard operating procedure. Do it this way, right? Which is pretty cool. So that's really neat. People that may have some type of disability. Yeah, absolutely. We would hire. We don't currently have anybody in the business. I mean, yeah, I mean, you have to allow for that for sure. That's law, right? What do you mean by not having HQ? You said a while back you moved from your home for broadcasts. Yeah, HQ meaning an office where all of our employees are. There was an office that was in fact just a studio for me to go into, which I just called headquarters, but it wasn't like that's where the other office or that's where the other members of the community were around. Our VA is so polite, says Angelina. He doesn't suggest straight away, but gives me several options. Oh, that's cool. That's real nice. Very cool. Chris Tucker's people are kind of expensive. They are, but you get what you pay for. That's the other thing. You get what you pay for, and the service that you offer the service that you get is definitely worth the time if in fact you don't have the time to go and vet and have conversations and find those VAs yourself. So I would agree with that. I mean, it comes with the price, but you get what you pay for with Chris for sure. And again, that's at virtualstafffinder.com. Now let's keep talking a little bit. I think that, again, over time, you and your VAs, or you and your employees, or you and the people that you continually hire as an agency or contractors that you just continually work with again and again, having a relationship with them is really key. Not just thinking about them as sort of transactional, but also a relationship where you can both help each other out and perhaps even become friends. Is, to me, in my opinion, the ideal situation, because then you're going to work better to help both support each other. You're going to be able to be more honest with each other. You're going to be able to improve efficiencies on both sides to help better both camps. And that is something that's really important to me, especially with Team SPI now, to have relationships, to have open, honest conversations, to have the ability to lean on each other when we need, the ability to hear each other out emotionally when needed. We have something every Friday within our team called Retro. And this is something that Matt brought to the table, which I wasn't a huge fan of at first, but it's actually become really important to me to understand, because it's more than just about here's the work that you did and here's what happened. It's about how are you doing as a person, and to show appreciation for people is really, really key. And so on Fridays, we have what's called Retro, and we have it structured this way. You could structure yours any which way, and it could even be, with your VA as well if you wanted to, just to kind of see how they're doing, so you can take care of them. But on Fridays, we have Retro. Everybody on the team talks about a work win and a work struggle, and a personal win and a personal struggle. And this is something that allows us to open up with each other. And if we can see that somebody's maybe struggling a little bit personally, some people on the team might be able to help out or at least provide support, which is pretty cool. So that's really neat. Another thing that we are doing recently is we got involved with this thing called Bonusly. And we're experimenting with it, but Andrea on my team, one of our executive assistants on the SPI media side of things, not my personal assistant, but for the company, she found this thing called Bonusly, Bonusly. Bonusly is pretty neat. It's pretty neat. You know why? Because every month, everybody on the team gets a certain number of points. And we can give these points away to other people to recognize them for the work that they're doing. And again, that recognition and work is really important. Many of you have heard the story of me when I was an architect, did a lot of work, more than I needed to, was never really recognized for that. And recognition for many people is a driver to do better, to do more quality work, to be a part of the team more, to feel like they belong, and to want to push harder. And so Bonusly is cool because it's almost like a social media thing built within our Slack community where people can award points to other people. So if somebody's like, hey, I'm going to award 10 bonus points to Matt because Matt stepped up when we had technical issues yesterday, and then everybody sees it, we can all sort of thank that person. It becomes a pretty cool public way to have recognition within the company, which is really neat. So again, that's called Bonusly, and it actually does involve like using points and stuff like that. And you can potentially even redeem points that you get. So you're actually encouraged to step forward and try new things to hopefully get other people on the team to sort of reward you for that. And not only do you get the recognition, but depending on the number of points that you have, you can redeem them for certain things, whether that's like additional hours or time off or things like that too, which is pretty neat. So yeah, Retro is really neat. This Bonusly thing is really cool. Again, just more ways for the team to connect with one another. Another thing that another thing that's really neat is that when I acquired the team, it was very important that we all got to know each other, right, as people. So we actually all traveled to San Diego. It's not a big drive for me, but everybody came to San Diego. We spent 2 days in a very nice mansion in La Jolla, California, to just like be with each other, to learn from each other, to play games with each other, and to develop our plan for the rest of the year and how we were all going to work together. And that was really neat. It's not always required, and obviously it's very difficult to do that now, but whenever the entire team can meet in person, that's always a great thing because you can develop those relationships and just learn more about each other in that way. But one thing that we did, that whether you can choose to meet with your people or not in person, is you can have people we did both the Strength Finders test, or the 16 Personalities test at 16personalities.com, and we did an Enneagram test so we can learn about each other as people. And I know we don't often like to just categorize, oh, you're a this, or you're a that, or you're an NFJP, or NFT, whatever, or you're an Enneagram 3. But honestly, it's been really helpful to learn more about who it is that's on the team and how they work and how they respond, how they prefer to get spoken to. Like those kinds of things were really neat. So yeah. Cool. So we are in the last 15 minutes here. And let's see. Why Fusion says, thank you for sharing this information. We have full-time staff for our agency, but was considering hiring VAs for another business venture. I appreciate you always sharing your experiences and insight. Yeah, no worries. My pleasure. I mean, I think that there's a couple things happening. Number one, I've gotten a lot of questions about hiring recently. Number two, in April of this year is Executive and Assistant Appreciation Day. And that's coming up. And we want to make sure the people who work with us feel the love, not just on that day, but all year round, of course. And yeah, let's go from there. So would be more than happy to answer questions. There's a question coming in here from Angelina who says, what would be the criteria to hire a video editor? Now, obviously, we want to make sure what kind of videos we want to have, because then we can find a person who's really good at creating those types of videos. For example, if you need some sales videos, we'd want to hire somebody who has done sales videos before. If you want to do more emotional videos to pull at the heartstrings, and find somebody who's a really good storyteller with their editing and can do that for you, right? So it's not just like, oh, I edit videos, therefore I would help you. Like, what kind of videos? Look at their portfolios, all those kinds of things. I think that if you have experience with somebody who's also, if you're, for example, getting an editor on YouTube or for YouTube videos, finding an editor who's done YouTube videos, who knows about YouTube, who can offer even more insight to go back and forth with you on, would be amazing. I'm working with somebody right now on the Deep Pocket Monster channel, with somebody who is, fairly proficient with YouTube and is giving a lot of good advice on the script that I have to be able to sort of like change it around and make it even better, specifically for YouTube, for holding people longer, those kinds of things too, right? You take care of your staff, and they will take care of you and your business and customers. That's for sure, Tina. High five on that one. Absolutely. This one is going into my notes as a watch again. Wow, I feel like back in college. Tough to keep up. Super great stuff. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome, Uncle Bill. Sorry I'm talking quite quickly today, but I know I have a lot of stuff that I wanted to share about this. So very grateful that I'm able to help out today. And again, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. And we'll probably end in about 7 minutes. So we'll end about 5 minutes early. I got to head out and get ready for another meeting very soon. And I'm excited about that. So anyway, very grateful. I think there were some other questions. Justin asked a question. Justin said, where did your question go? Here we go. How did you get new questions and unique content for your Food Trucker podcast to keep it going? Very simple. Look for where people are asking questions. So if you go to answerthepublic.com, for example, I don't know if you've ever been to answerthepublic.com, but it's a pretty amazing website. I'll show it to you right now, and this is a handy tool for everybody. Answer, if I could spell correctly, answerthepublic.com. I think I got to cut my nails. That's the issue. All right, don't worry about this guy. He's just waiting for me to type something in. Let's go United States. Yeah, United States, baby. Okay. I'm going to type in food truck. Actually, maybe, yeah, just food truck. Now, this will scour the web to find all the questions that people are asking about food trucks. Who, what, where, why, when, how, etc. And if we scroll here, you'll see in just a moment, we're going to see an array of questions popping up in just a minute here. It's just taking a little bit of time to load, but again, we're gathering some data. It'll take some time. I'll show it to you in just, right when I did that. Of course, 65 questions. So let me show the data here versus the visualization. Are food trucks profitable? There's a podcast episode. Are food trucks parks? Are food truck parks profitable? There's another episode. How much are food truck permits? There's another episode. How much are food truck rentals? Can I rent a food truck to run my business? Let's see. Can food trucks park anywhere? There's another question. Can food trucks make money? Can food trucks serve alcohol? There's another question. What is a food truck business? How does it run, right? Can I do catering for my food truck? What is a food truck commissary? Everything you need to know about a food truck commissary. Who designed food truck? History of food trucks. Which foods are the best for food trucks? Who is the food truck advantage? So literally on this one website, by scouring the web to see what questions people are asking already, Justin, I'm getting to see what questions are out there and I can just answer them from here. Now, obviously, I can go into forums. I can go into different groups. I think going into like different food truck groups on Facebook is something that I did. And I would just kind of notice what questions people were asking. I'd go into Google. I'd go into other resources and see what comments people had, books about the topics on Amazon to see what questions that were left unanswered in the reviews, for example, is where I might go to. So hopefully that gives you some insight. And again, that's answerthepublic.com, answerthepublic.com. Cool. I see some more questions coming in. Doopy-doo. Just removing some things on the screen. All right. Is there a legal issue giving an SOP to a contractor? Is there a point where they become an employee? I would have that conversation with a attorney or professional. There are lines there, of course, but I think it's based on number of hours and things like that, and perhaps ways of communication. I'm not exactly sure, Kathy, but that is a good question for sure. That is a really good question. Let's see. Why do you prefer Enneagram over Myers-Briggs? Maybe it's just because I've had more results from it, not just like the result of the exam or of the test, but more like application for it, if you will, Kathy. It's definitely helped me in my personal life as well. It's just helped me understand people more than some of the other tests. Bye, Grandma Goody. Thank you for coming in today. Appreciate you. Let's see. Been listening in. Appreciate all the info as usual. Thank you, Peasant Uprising. How did you find your assistants? You mentioned Upwork, and I missed the other place. There is Upwork. There's also Fiverr if you want projects done. But the other place really where I found my assistants was through my network, asking around some of my friends. Sometimes I've had leads from other people who I know who say, hey, my assistant, is looking for other work or has extra time for more clients. Does anybody need help? You might find that there's other people out there who have assistants that could, add more time into their plate. And then also there's other places like Indeed.com and Monster.com, and those places are okay, but I would start with your network for sure. What's your most important leadership quality? My most important leadership quality, I think it's empathy, but I think that's an important quality for anything. And I think that, leading by example is really important to me, right? It's one thing to just like stand on top of the mountain and say, go do this, or you should behave this way, versus like, let me demonstrate from my end how this should be done so that others can follow the lead. Amazing stuff, Pat. So much info here. Awesome. Thank you. CV, there's a video a while back where Pat gave his 5 tips that helped greatly for starting a YouTube channel. There was a video that came out today in case you haven't checked it out yet. It's actually it's performing really well right now. It's how to get monetized on YouTube. I took some stuff from my Deep Pocket Monster experience, put it into a video with 5 tips to help you get monetized. Results will vary, of course, but it does have some stuff on there that'll help you if that's the video you were referencing. So, all right, knowing when to get help. I think that's where people struggle, thinking that they must be responsible for business on their own. Yeah, I mean, that takes us back to the first story that I was telling about how I tried to record my own audiobook when I wasn't even, I just shouldn't have done that. Having to let go is really the big thing. But you don't have to let go of the whole thing all at once. You can let go of small little pieces here and there. And the truth is, the more that you spend time on a lot of these things that you probably spent time in the beginning, the less time you're going to have to grow, because you're going to stay stagnant doing all the other things that you did to get where you're at here. What got you here won't get you there. One more time, that what got you here won't get you there. Hiring other people, finding the right people to help support you, and unloading the things that, yes, maybe you just didn't know how to do. That's obvious. Maybe you do know how to do, but you hate. That's obvious too. But the least obvious, that is going to give you the most time back, is handing off the things that you're good at, that you could do on your own, that you don't need help with, but you should probably get help with so you can unlock more time to do other things too. Whew. Uncle Bill says, question, seriously, is your Nerf sniper gun still working? Yeah, we've actually purchased several more. My son and I are collecting a lot of Nerf guns now, and my son is even modifying them, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, there you go. This episode is very well timed. We need help, but need to define the work that we can parcel out and give to others. Releasing responsibility, yes, letting go. Cool. Final question here from Loving Legacy. Pat, I'm thinking of making a second channel. Would you recommend a second channel if the first one is not really grown yet? I have under 100 subs, but I love my audience. if it's something that's like literally a completely separate topic, then yeah. Like for me, Deep Pocket Monster in the Pokemon space, that has nothing to do necessarily with business. Yes, there is a little bit of crossover if I forced it, but it's completely understandably and very obviously a separate channel. But for you, if you're just starting out, maybe this first channel that you created with the people who are there already, maybe this is related. You just lean into this, and maybe it becomes the new era of this channel. You change the name, you make it up, you spruce it up a little bit, you light it on fire, and you go, and then you get crazy with the consistency and the deliverability, and you go from there. So, woo, okay. So, thank you so much for today, Kathy. Thank you for sharing that link. I appreciate you. And to all the moderators here, as always, just thank you so much for your support here in the chat. And everybody, just thank you for showing up today. I appreciate you. Hope this was helpful. If it was helpful and you know somebody who could use this, feel free to pass it on. Thank you so much. Hit that like button before you go. And we'll see you tomorrow. When are we on tomorrow? Let me see. Tomorrow we're going to be on at... What was that? Tomorrow we're going to be on at 10 a.m. Pacific. So not 11, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. There we go. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Queen Bee. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Loving Literacy. Dawn, Burke. Appreciate you so much. Contempo Coding. I appreciate you. And yeah, let's keep up the good work. High five, everybody. Thanks so much. Appreciate you. And as always, Team Flynn for the win.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream. All while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Let's go, Team Flynn. Thank you so much for your time and attention today, and I hope that you make good use out of the information that was learned here today. Thank you all so much for the questions, and again, a big shout out to all the moderators here. Make sure to follow them if you haven't already. Peace out. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. You're awesome.
Bruh.